On Global TV News Prime, President Tinubu honors fallen heroes, reaffirms support for armed forces. In business, federal government bans signature bonus refund as oil reforms continues. And on the foreign scene, United States complete first sale of Venezuelan oil following Maduro's capture. In sport, Athletic Federation of Nigeria bans 21 athletes, coaches over age fraud. Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to News Prime on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. Now the news in full. Nigeria today stood in solemn reflection as the nation honors its fallen heroes at the 2026 Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day, marked by an emotional parade and wreath-laying ceremony at the National Arcade in Abuja. Kikelomo Okere has the details.
At the National Arcade in Abuja, silence filled the air as memories of sacrifice and service took center stage. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who was represented by the Vice President Kashim Shettima, led the country in paying tribute to officers and men of the Nigerian Armed Forces who paid the ultimate price in defense of the nation. The ceremony began with laying of wreath, first by the Vice President on behalf of the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, followed by leaders of the National Assembly and the Judiciary, service chiefs, veterans, and families of the fallen heroes. A minute of silence followed as prayers were offered for the repose of the souls of the departed and for peace, unity, and security across the country. In a deep symbolic moment, white pigeons were released by the Vice President into the sky, representing peace, hope, freedom, and nation's collective prayers that the sacrifice of the fallen heroes will lead to lasting unity and security in Nigeria. As the pigeons soared, many in attendance watched in quiet reflection, some holding back tears. The solemn mood then transitioned into the military parade as the contingent of the Nigerian Army, Navy, and Air Force marched with discipline and precision. A powerful reminder that the spirit of the fallen lives on through those still in service. For families of the fallen heroes, the ceremony was both painful and proud, a national acknowledgement that their loved ones are remembered and honored. As the last-minute salute was rendered, Nigeria renewed its vows never to forget the courage, sacrifice, and service of its fallen heroes. Kikelomo Okere, Global Television News.
Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma has announced fresh financial support of 600 million for families of fallen security personnel as Nigeria marks the Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day. The governor says security remains the core mandate of his administration 6 years after assuming office. Our correspondent Amarachi Ibe reports.
Imo State joins the rest of the country to mark the Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day with a ceremony held at the NDBC Carlos Square in Owerri. Governor Hope Uzodinma says the day is set aside to honor officers and men of the armed forces who paid the supreme price in defense of the country. Speaking at the event, the governor announces a new tranche of financial support for families of fallen servicemen and women who lost their lives securing the state.
We will not wait for tomorrow to show that we care for those who gave everything for our peace. Today, we'll be handing out here on this ground the sum of 600 million naira to the families of our fallen heroes
The governor commended President Bola Tinubu for restructuring the nation's security architecture and strengthening the fight against terrorism and other forms of insecurity, as he called on young people in Imo State to enlist in the armed forces and other security agencies, warning that failure to do so could affect the state's future representation in the security sector.
I must therefore at this point commend our President and Commander-in-Chief, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for his decisive action in rejigging our national security architecture by going all out to confront insecurity and designating all non-state armed groups as terrorists.
The ceremony features rock-laying, prayer for peace and security in the country, and other symbolic activities in honor of fallen and service personnel. From the NDBC Carlos Square in Owerri, Amarachi Ibe, reporting for Global TV News.
An Abuja High Court has struck out the criminal charges instituted by the federal government against the lawmaker representing Kogi Central, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Oduaghan, effectively bringing to an end a high-profile legal battle that sparked national debate. The court records show that the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation filed a notice of discontinuance, prompting the court to formally strike out the criminal defamation and related charges that had been earlier preferred against the senator. The case, which attracted intense public scrutiny, stemmed from comments allegedly made by Akpoti-Oduaghan during a televised interview. The prosecution of the matter had generated sustained debate around freedom of expression, political accountability, and limits of prosecutorial powers in a democratic setting. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, that is NDLEA, has intensified efforts to curb the supply and abuse of hard drugs in the country, with deployment of officers across Nigeria's land, sea, and air borders to intercept illicit drugs coming into the country and leaving the country. The department has said something about it, and they are serious, according to the Deputy Commander General and Director, Asset and Financial Investigation of the agency, Dr. Ibrahim Abdul, disclosed this in an exclusive interview with Global TV. Zarau Nasir reports.
As Nigeria puts up a tough fight against drug abuse, cartels and patrons are busy adjusting their tactics in circumventing security agencies and the hurdles set by the law. What are the implications of this reality? We find out in this report.
Drug abuse, particularly among youths, has continued to pose a serious threat to public health, national productivity, and social stability in Nigeria. Experts warn that early exposure to hard drugs increases the risk of addiction and long-term health challenges, with far-reaching physical, mental, social, and economic consequences. Medical professionals further link drug abuse to mental health disorders, noting that young people who abuse drugs are more vulnerable to depression, anxiety, personality disorders, and other behavioral problems. In response, the National Drugs Law Enforcement Agency says it has strengthened its strategy to cut off the supply of illicit drugs at source. The Deputy Commander General and Director of Assets and Financial Investigation, Dr. Ibrahim Abdul, explains that NDLEA officers have been strategically deployed to land borders, seaports, and airports to monitor and intercept drugs being smuggled into and out of the country.
Whatever NDLEA is doing is by virtue of what Section 3 of the NDLEA Act Cap N30 provided. The agency that has the sole responsibility of tackling hard drugs in Nigeria, to the exclusion of all other law enforcement agencies, is NDLEA. And that is why we put in place officers in land, sea, and air borders to check drugs coming and going out of the country, and also officers in state commands and also strategic locations in this country.
Dr. Abdul says, beyond enforcement, the agency is also intensifying preventive measures, especially among youths. He explains that traditional rulers and religious leaders have been integrated into NDLEA sensitization programs to help educate communities on the dangers of drug abuse. These structures, he says, are aimed at grassroots sensitization and early intervention to discourage drug abuse and related crimes.
There are so many things put in place by NDLA under the leadership of General Marwa. First, we have the war against drug abuse, which is a tackle, which is meant for doing advocacies to so many places to sensitize people on the dangers and menaces of drug abuse through the usage of traditional institutions, teachers in schools, religious leaders, and so many other sectors of the society.
As the NDLEA intensifies border surveillance and community engagement, stakeholders say sustained awareness and collective responsibility remain key to protecting Nigeria's youths from the dangers of drug abuse. Zahrau Nasr, reporting for Global TV.
President Bola Tinubu has congratulated Nigerian artists who emerged winner at the 9th edition of the All-African Music Award, that is AFRIMA, describing their success as evidence of the continued growth and global recognition of Nigeria's creative industry. In a statement released by the State House, the president praised the artists for making the country proud on a continental stage, noting that their achievements reflect the creativity, resilience, and talent of Nigerian youths, as well as the country's growing influence in Africa and global music. Nigeria recorded a strong showing at the award, which held from January 7 to 11, 2026 in Lagos. Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma marks 6 years in office and the second anniversary of his second tenure with a Thanksgiving Mass at the Government House Chapel, Owerri. The service is presided over by the Catholic Archbishop of Owerri, Ecclesiastical Province, His Grace Most Reverend Lucius Ugoji. Our correspondent Amarachi Ibe reports.
It is the moment of thanksgiving and reflection as Governor Hope Uzodinma, alongside top government officials, political leaders, clergy, and other invited guests, gathered at the Government House Chapel, Owerri, to mark 6 years of his administration. The special Thanksgiving Mass also marked the second year of the governor's second tenure in office. Presiding over the Holy Mass, Catholic Archbishop of Owerri Ecclesiastical Province, His Grace Most Reverend Lucius Ugoji, in his homily, commended the governor's leadership as he enumerated laudable projects of the governor in the state.
Your Excellency, we likewise wish to commend your administration for the remarkable improvements in the security situation in the state, which made it possible for many people to travel to their villages during the last Christmas celebration.
We are firmly convinced that with time, the roads leading to the rural communities in the state will also be habilitated to promote social and economic activities.
In his anniversary address, Governor Uzodinma thanked God for guidance, protection, and wisdom over the years. The governor says his administration will continue to consolidate on gains already recorded in infrastructure, security, economic development, and adds that rebuilding Imo requires a collective effort.
I'll do my best to the ability of what a man can do to encourage a smooth succession so that there will be peace in Imo State. I'll do my best to implement and encourage Oyeri Maneya area. But you must know that it must be one man at a
time.
The event highlights the governor's position that leadership is both a privilege and a responsibility to be guided by accountability and service to the people of Imo State. From Government House Chapel, Owerri, Amarachi Ibe reporting for Global TV News.
You're watching the live broadcast of News Prime. News Prime continues after this weather forecast.
Hello, you're welcome to the weather forecast for Friday. An improvement is expected in the weather condition across the country, as moderate dust haze is expected in the north and north-central region. However, poorer visibilities are expected in parts of Zamfara, Katsina, Kano, and Jigawa states, where horizontal visibilities are likely to reduce to 1,000 meters or less. Over the southern parts of the country, increased moisture influx combined with lingering dust particles is expected to serve as a particulate matter leading to cloud buildup. And as a result, partly cloudy skies is expected in the southern parts of the country, with chances of morning thunderstorms in parts of Cross River and Akwa Ibom states. We advise motorists, individuals with respiratory conditions to please take necessary precaution. We also advise our airline operators to visit our eFlight folder portal for regular weather updates. Stay with us for the temperature forecast. I am Theodora Itum. Thank you for watching.
Welcome back from that break. Now let's take you to the Board of Business, where the federal government has directed banks and fintech companies to begin collecting and remitting 7.5% VAT on selected electronic banking service charges from January 19, 2026. The tax will apply to transaction fees such as transfers, USSD charges, and card issuance, while interest on savings and deposit remains exempt. Officials say the move is aimed at standardizing value-added tax collection across digital financial platforms and boosting government revenue. The federal government has warned prospective investors in the 2025 oil licensing round that any errors, miscalculation, or disappointments arising from the bidding process will become entirely by their companies involved, stressing that there will be no refund of signature bonuses or exchanges of oil assets under any circumstances. The warning was issued by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Oil, Henneken Lokpobiri, at the 2025 Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission's pre-bid conference held in Lagos. The conference, which attracted a large turnout, both physically and online, was aimed at educating prospective bidders on available assets, the legal framework, and the risk involved in the licensing process. The minister said the era when oil licenses were acquired for speculation, prestige, or resale is over, adding that licenses are government assets that must be actively developed. The Dangote Petroleum Refinery has commenced nighttime loading operations as it intensifies efforts to sustain a daily supply of more than 50 million liters of petroleum motor spirit, petrol, across Nigeria, signaling a major shift for full 24 hours operation at Africa's largest refinery. Speaking during a press briefing at the refinery, the managing director, David Bird, said the transaction to round-the-clock loading had become necessary to make market demand and improve turnaround time for product evacuation. He said the refinery is now meeting the 50 million liters daily petrol requirement in both production and evacuation, noting that the move comes as the refinery continued to ramp up production, stabilize logistics, and strengthen fuel security, while countering speculation around maintenance activities and supply disruptions. Ibom LNG and Logistic Base Limited has secured a $700 million financing deal with Sakuro Investment Group to develop a 100 million standard cubic feet per day liquefied natural gas facility in Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. The signing took place at Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, positioning the state as a strategic hub for LNG production and downstream industrial growth. The agreement, executed as a memorandum of understanding and financing term sheet, drew top government and financial officials, highlighting strong regulatory and institutional support for Nigeria's gas-led industrialization agenda. The facility, when completed, is expected to generate jobs, enhance domestic energy security, promote cleaner fuel substitution, and boost regional exports, driving both economic and developmental impact. The project reflects growing global collaboration between Nigeria, the UAE, Canada, and international investors in large-scale, bankable energy infrastructure. Let's take you to the foreign scene, where Uganda's opposition leader Bobi Wine says he would call for protests if incumbent President Yoweri Museveni rigs this week's election. Wine also stated that he would welcome an intervention by the United States, acknowledging that protests are likely to provoke more crackdown. Uyi Agbomofuegbe brings us details.
Voting had yet to start in many areas after polls were due to open, as biometric machines used to verify voters' identity were malfunctioning and ballot boxes undelivered. President Museveni is widely expected to win a 7th term in office thanks to his total control of the state and security apparatus. Bobi Wine, on his part, has also said the ongoing internet shutdown is a deliberate attempt to allegedly facilitate rigging.
As we hold our general elections in Uganda, the world should be reminded that we are holding elections in the dark. The internet has been switched off across the country. This is done in order to facilitate the intended rigging of the regime. Otherwise, why would the people of Uganda be denied the right to communicate, and why the Ugandan election should be held in the dark?
More than 20 million people have registered to vote in the East African country, with 81-year-old Museveni widely expected to continue his 4-decade rule. His main opponent is singer-turned-politician Bobi Wine, 43, real name Robert Kyagulanyi, who is taking a second run at the presidency after his 2021 campaign was met with violent repression and alleged rigging. Uyi Agbomofuegbe, reporting for Global TV News.
The United States has completed its first sale of Venezuelan oil, generating about $500 million, making the first major energy transaction since Washington's recent intervention in Venezuela. The development follows a dramatic U.S. military operation in Caracas earlier this month that led to the capture of President Nicolas Maduro and reshaped relations between both countries. A U.S. official says the sale is part of a broader $2 billion agreement, with more oil sales expected in the coming days as the U.S. begins marketing Venezuelan crude under its supervision. Under the new framework, Washington plans to supervise the sale of 30 to 50 million barrels of Venezuelan crude, tapping into the country's vast oil reserves, the largest proven in the world at about 303 billion barrels. And on to the world of sports, the Athletic Federation of Nigeria has imposed wide-ranging sanctions on athletes, coaches, and 2 state athletes associations following the conclusion of a special investigation into age falsification involving competitors at the 2025 African Under-18 and Under-20 Championships held in Abeokuta. In a memorandum titled Recommendation of Sanctions and Reprimands for Athletes, Coaches, Administrators, and States involved in the AIU age cheating inquiry addressed to the AFN President and Executive Board, the committee stated that several athletes have registered and competed with multiple dates of birth without any legitimate explanation. The panel, constituted on December 9, 2025, was set up to examine allegations of age discrepancies among young Nigerian athletes flagged by the Athletic Integrity Unit of World Athletic on December 2, 2025. Defending champion Super Falcons of Nigeria has been drawn in Group C of the 2026 Women's African Cup of Nations with Zambia, Egypt, and Malawi. Group C games will be played in Casablanca. Nigeria thrashed Zambia 5-0 in the quarter-finals of the 2024 edition, which was also hosted by Morocco. English Premier League side West Ham United have stepped up their interest in Nigerian midfielder Tochukwu Nnadi, who is currently on international duty with the Super Eagles at the African Cup of Nations in Morocco. According to Sports Boom, West Ham United officials have already held discussion with Nnadi's representative when he is in Nigeria's African Cup of Nations camp in Morocco. West Ham have been tracking Nnadi for several months following a series of impressive performances for the Belgium side. And that's it on News Prime. Here's a recap of our top stories on Global TV News this evening. We told you that Nigeria today stood in solemn reflection as the nation honored its fallen heroes at the 2026 Armed Forces celebration and Remembrance Day, marked by an emotional parade and wreath-laying ceremony at the National Arcade in Abuja. In business, we told you that the federal government has warned prospective investors in the 2025 oil licensing round that any error, miscalculations, or disappointments arising from the bidding process will be borne entirely by the companies involved, stressing that there will be no refund of signature bonuses or exchanges of oil assets under any circumstance. And on the foreign scene, the United States has completed its first sale of Venezuelan oil, generating about $500 million, making the first major energy transaction since Washington's recent intervention in Venezuela. And finally, from the world of sport, we told you that the Athletic Federation of Nigeria has imposed wide-ranging sanctions on athletes, coaches, and 2 state athletes associations following the conclusion of a special investigation into age falsification involving competitors at the 2025 African Under-18 and Under-20 Championship held in Abeokuta. A quick reminder that Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and StarTimes channel 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen using @GlobalTV NG. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Thank you for watching.